Danny from Wicked Cool Finance here. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now, if I was going to make my first investment today in 2025, what would I do and how would I do it? We're going to cover 4 key topics on this video. To start with, what's the key difference between saving and investing and why you should be investing? Number 2, are you ready to invest and how much should you invest? And number 3, what are some great and easy things to invest in? And 4, if I was making my first investment today, what would I do and how would I do it? I'll walk you through the whole process. Now make sure you stay towards the end of this video because most people primarily just focus on the investments. They don't focus very much on the type of account. And rest assured, the type of account can have a very big impact on the amount of money that you have in retirement. Okay, to start with, what's the basic difference between savings and investing? Well, if you save in a basic savings account at a national bank, you're probably not going to make that much money. For instance, if you save less than $100,000, most national banks are only going to pay you 0.05%. I didn't say 0.5%, I said 0.05%. That's almost zero. And if you save between $100,000 and $500,000, then they're probably only going to give you 1%. If you save $500,000 to $1 million, then they're probably only going to give you 2%. And if you if you save more than $1 million, then they'll give you 2.5%. Well, in May, it was announced that the inflation rate rose to 2.4%. So if the inflation rate is ticking along at 2.4% and you're only getting 1%, or for that matter, 0.05% on your savings, you're losing money every day. All right, what is investing? Well, investing is putting your money into what I call a variable investment. Investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs, also known as exchange-traded funds. Investments like the S&P 500 index. The reason I chose the S&P 500 index to talk about is because I want to expand on the idea of compound interest or compounding. Albert Einstein once said that the idea of compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. All right, well, the S&P 500 has averaged a rate of return over time of about 10% over about the last 20 years. That's pretty solid. So let's talk about this idea of compounding, but let's do it by using a really cool tool, a tool called the Rule of 72. What is the Rule of 72? Well, the Rule of 72 is you simply take that number 72 and you divide it by any rate of return, and that tells you how long it takes for your money to double. For instance, well, the S&P 500 has averaged a rate of return of about 10% over the past 20 years. So using that rule of 72, you take 72 divided by the rate of return, which is 10, and you get 7.2. So in 7.2 years, your money would double. So let's say you put $10,000 in the S&P 500, you got a 10% rate of return, and 7.2 years, you would have $20,000. Well, you can do it again. And this is how compounding begins. So now you've got $20,000 still ticking along at 10%. And at 10%, you're going to double at 7.2 years. So, and a little bit over 14 years, well, now you would have $40,000. Well, now you have 40, still ticking along at 10%. And given the rule of 72, in an additional 7.2 years, now you would have $80,000. It's very, very powerful. So start early. But are you ready to invest? Before you invest, you need to ask yourself these 2 questions. The first question is, do you have any high interest debt? I define high interest as any interest above 15%. In fact, most credit cards today charge an interest rate of about 25%. So if you had a fair amount of money in credit card debt, you could be digging yourself a big hole. For instance, if you have $10,000 in credit card debt at 25%, that means you're spending $2,500 every year on interest alone. So if that's you and you have some credit card debt, you need to pay that off before you're ready to invest. Second, do you have a reserve fund or an emergency fund? Think about it. If you lose your job today, how long will it take you to find another one? Will it take you 3 months or 6 months? It may take you up to 6 months to find another job, so you need to make sure that you have a reserve fund. You want to be in a position to only invest the money that you don't need for a few years or maybe even longer, because investing has some risk. But when should you start? You should start now. How much should you invest? Well, start with anything. Start with $1. Invest as much as you possibly can, of course, after answering those two questions. Start with some easy investments like index funds. Warren Buffett, one of the most famous investors of all time, has often said that most people should just be investing in index funds. Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, one of the largest investment houses in the world, has often said, don't try to find a needle in a haystack, buy the whole haystack. Well, what are index funds? Well, an index is a list of companies. All right? What is a fund? A fund is a collection of money pooled from various investors. Buy America. This helps lower your risk. I suggest a couple of ETFs. Two of my favorites are the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. The Vanguard S&P 500 invests in the 500 largest companies in America. It's got a great expense ratio of only 0.03%, and the symbol is VOO. The second investment that I really like is the Invesco QQQ. The Invesco QQQ invests in the top 100 largest companies in the NASDAQ that tend to be technology oriented. It's got a great expense ratio too of only 0.2%, and its symbol, as you can guess, is QQQ. Now, most financial educators focus only on the investments. They focus on the investments because they're more exciting and they grab your attention. But the type of account that you actually put your money into can be critical and can have as I said before, can be critical and have a major impact on the amount of money, disposable money, that you have at the end of the day in retirement. Now, typically, most people invest in their 401k throughout their career, and then they retire at age 59 and a half or maybe later, and they roll that 401k into what is called a traditional IRA. Traditional IRAs have a problem. When you take the money out of them, you have to pay income tax. In many cases, both state income tax and certainly federal income tax. It can really hurt. Let me explain how it can really hurt. Let me give you an example. My mother's got an older car and she's due for a new one. Her car has about 250,000 miles on it. So she's looking for a Honda Accord. Well, a Honda Accord with a couple options on it today will cost you about $35,000. Well, if she takes $35,000 out of her traditional IRA, she's going to have to pay tax on that. And tax, when you add the state and the federal together, her tax is going to be about 25%. So 25% tax on $35,000 is $8,750. But hold it. She just took another $8,750 out of her traditional IRA. So now she has to pay tax on the money that she took out to pay tax on. It's crazy. So the additional tax on the $8,750 at 25% would be an additional $2,187. So if you start adding it up, the cost of the car is $35,000. The tax on the 35 is $8,750. And then the tax that you pay on the money that you took out to pay the tax with is an additional $2,187. So the total cost of the car is $45,937. That's almost $46,000 on a car that she thought was going to be $35,000. So what do? Well, when you're younger, or you're even middle-aged, or any age for that matter, if you're saving, you should do your best to save in what is called a Roth IRA. Roth IRA is pretty cool because when you put money into a Roth, you don't get a tax deduction, but don't worry about that. When you put money into a Roth, it grows tax-free. And if you take the money out after age 59 and a half, it comes out tax-free. That is awesome. So think about it. If you're lucky enough to save and get up to $1 million in your Roth IRA, well, when you go to take that money out, it's all yours. Whereas if that money was in a traditional IRA, if that $1 million was in a traditional, and you took it out, whether it be slowly or in one lump sum, you would have to eventually pay a total of $250,000, 25%, $250,000 in taxes, and that money's going to the government. So the reality is, you think you have $1 million, but when it comes to disposable income, you really only have $750,000. Well, here we are. If I was going to make my first investment today, what would I do and how would I do it? Well, if I was going to do it myself, I would go to E-Trade, Schwab, or perhaps Fidelity. Or even better, I may go to my bank. Most banks in the United States today have investment officers that work in them, and you can often sit down with them and get some good advice. But if I did that, what would I do? I would say, hey, please open up a Roth IRA for me. And please invest some money into the Vanguard S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in America, as well as please put some money into the Invesco QQQ, which is the 100 largest companies in the NASDAQ, which tend to be technology oriented, and I'd be off and running. In addition to that, I would ask my advisor, or if I was doing it online, I would set up what is called an automatic monthly draft, and I would have money go from my bank account, a little bit of money every month, go into that Roth IRA. And if you do that, I'm certain that you'll have solid success in the future. Now, look below, and I've got many videos on various financial topics that I think you'll find very interesting. And certainly, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next one.